Lawn chair diplomacy. You have 5 seconds to leave this property, or I'm calling the HOA security, snapped the woman, holding her phone up like it was both weapon and badge. I took a slow sip from my lemonade, leaned back in the chair I'd placed perfectly in the shade of the sycamore I planted 15 years ago, and asked calmly, "Would you like to speak to the Secret Service agent in the car before or after you hit dial?" She blinked, and just like that, her world cracked wide open. The black SUV door opened with a hush of hydraulics. What followed wasn't chaos. Not yet. It was the unraveling of something much older than today. This wasn't just about a property line or HOA rules. It was about control, illusion, and what happens when those illusions crash into reality. Let me back up. It was a lazy Sunday. One of those rare afternoons where the breeze makes your drink sweat, birds chirp somewhere off in the distance, and all your responsibilities feel like they belong to someone else. I'd taken up refuge in my backyard, a space entirely my own, wrapped in fencing, bound by deed, and legally detached from the reach of the HOA that governed the rest of the neighborhood like a petty kingdom. See, my house was built before the HOA even existed. A legal island. Their rules didn't touch me, and that's what drove people like her absolutely wild. Her name? Legally, it was something grandiose, Charlotte Genevieve Whitlock, I think. But around here, she wore Karen like a battle title. Pastel tracksuits, the platinum bob, designer sunglasses larger than her grievances, and a voice that pierced the air like a fire alarm. HOA vice chair, self-appointed community standards enforcer, and full-time chaos curator. I'd seen her lurking lately, parading around with a clipboard and a laminated badge that looked homemade. I thought it was a Halloween leftover. Apparently not. That afternoon, while I was deep into an old Clancy paperback and enjoying the kind of peace you earn through mortgage payments and mulching, she appeared. No hello. No polite wave. Just an abrupt declaration that I didn't belong. "You're not supposed to be here," she said with a glare like I'd stolen her parking spot. I blinked up at her. "Saw this yard," she said, gesturing dramatically at the perfectly mowed grass under my chair, "belongs to the HOA. You're not allowed here unless you're a member." I set the book down and laughed, honestly thinking she was joking. "Ma'am, I live here." She narrowed her eyes. "No, you don't. This house belongs to a federal consultant. We've seen the black SUVs and the men in suits. You're probably squatting." She wasn't wrong about the consultant part. I am one. A federal advisor working on national cyber infrastructure and communications resilience. It's a role that occasionally requires me to be shadowed by people with earpieces. It's not glamorous, but it's serious work. Apparently, Karen had been watching, but she'd connected all the wrong dots. Before I could explain, she whipped out her phone and started threatening to call the neighborhood patrol. I raised an eyebrow. "That's a real thing?" "Oh yes," she said, puffing her chest. "And they have jurisdiction." Enter Chad. Shirtless, burnt to a leathery crisp, sunglasses from another decade, and cargo shorts that screamed, "I peaked in high school." He rolled up in a golf cart like it was a police cruiser, brandishing a megaphone. Yes, an actual megaphone. "Sir," he boomed, "you are trespassing on HOA-monitored property. Vacate immediately." I waited for someone to yell cut, but it never came. Instead, Karen started filming. Chad, too. The neighbors peeked through their blinds like it was season 5 of a reality show they hated, but couldn't stop watching. I sighed, pulled out my phone out of weapon end, dialed a number from memory. "Rivera," came a voice on the other end. "I think you should drive around back," I said. Karen summoned the militia. Understood. Karen was still ranting about how I was impersonating someone dangerous. "I know fake agents when I see them," she screamed. Then came the SUV. Sleek, black, humming like a threat. It stopped by the curb, and 2 men in suits stepped out. Tall, stoic, sunglasses, and silence. One nodded at me, then turned to Karen. "Ma'am," he said, "you need to step away from the property." Karen froze. Chad dropped his megaphone. Rivera walked up and nodded to me. "Everything okay, sir?" "Karen here thinks I'm trespassing." Rivera turned, badge out. "Ma'am, this gentleman is a federally protected consultant. You've interfered with a secure location." Karen's jaw did a three-stage transition: confidence, confusion, incandescent rage. "This is fake," she shrieked. "I saw a video on Rumble about this." Chad was already backing up. Rivera tapped his earpiece. "We have a civilian refusing verbal compliance. Requesting documentation team." Another SUV rolled up, this time emblazoned with Homeland Security insignia. Karen's bravado cracked. "I'm calling the Real News," she yelled. "Ma'am," Rivera said, "you're already live streaming." Most people would have backed down. Not Karen. No, she tripled down. She marched up to Rivera, demanded to see his badge again, and when he obliged, scoffed, "Please, I could get that on Etsy." Rivera said nothing, just blinked slowly. Karen's fury doubled. "You're impersonating federal agents," she hissed. "This is HOA property." Agent Lynn stepped forward. "Ma'am, this parcel is federally registered under advisory classification, not HOA." Karen's eyebrows nearly launched off her face. "You can't just declare that." "Check with the county," Lynn replied coolly. "It's on file." Karen pivoted to her last defense delusion. "This is a deep state scam. I'm the victim here." I sipped my lemonade, trying not to laugh. Karen turned on me. "You think this is funny?" I shrugged. "Kind of." Chad tried to intervene. "Maybe we de-escalate." "No." Karen snapped. "This is our neighborhood." Rivera, still calm, spoke into his mic. "HQ, requesting evaluation. Civilian exhibits escalating delusional behavior, likely conspiracy influenced." Karen gasped. "Did you just call me paranoid? That's slander." Rivera didn't flinch. "Only if it's not true." Karen declared an emergency HOA meeting and stormed off. Chad followed like a man on his last life. The next day, the real circus arrived. Karen had rallied a dozen confused residents into her yard. There was a folding table, a loudspeaker, and flyers that screamed, "Protect our neighborhood from federal infiltration." It looked like a yard sale for tinfoil hats. From my porch, I watched through binoculars. Rivera stood beside me, expressionless. Karen, emboldened, revealed a map of my yard complete with red arrows and captions like "mind control dish" and "unknown frequency hose." Rivera deadpanned, "Should we be concerned?" "Only if she builds a trebuchet," I said. Karen introduced a motion to evict me. She climbed onto a plastic chair and shouted, "All in favor?" Two hesitant hands went up, one of which held a jelly donut. She declared the motion passed. Rivera held up a tablet. "Ma'am, drone footage shows you trespassing 7 times last week." Karen blinked. "Fake. Deep fake." Chad leaned in. "That's your blue visor, Karen." She snatched her phone. "I'm calling the media." And she did. A news van arrived that afternoon. Karen greeted them like a war hero. The young reporter barely disguised his boredom. She spun a wild tale about infiltrators and false agents. Then she marched him to my property line and pointed at everything from my garden gnome to my bird bath. Rivera stepped in. "You may film public land. Cross this line, and it's a federal violation." The reporter saw the badge and backed off. Karen was incensed. "This is tyranny." The reporter just muttered, "We'll reach out for follow-up," and vanished into the van. Karen returned to her live stream, pacing. "We will not be silenced." Back in the house, Rivera's phone buzzed. "We're activating extraction," he said. "Too visible now." I nodded. Before leaving, Rivera's team installed a new sign, Federal Surveillance Zone. Title 18 USC 1382. A camera tower followed. Karen, of course, saw it as a dare. The next morning, she crept across in a robe, phone rolling, and touched the fence. Within 20 minutes, a federal response vehicle arrived. Karen was arrested for trespassing on federally protected property. The video of her arrest hit the local web within hours. Someone overlaid "Bad Boys" as a soundtrack. Karen versus the feds started trending. Her tent came down. Her flyers vanished. Chad returned to power washing. But then it got worse for her. A plain white van arrived. 2 people got out. IRS. They serve her paperwork. Misappropriation of HOA funds, Rivera confirmed. She's under investigation for embezzlement. Karen had used HOA money for personal landscaping, bought a hot tub under community therapy, and wrote off propaganda supplies as defense infrastructure. The board held an emergency vote. Karen was removed. Chad abstained. He wasn't sure what embezzlement meant. I watched from my porch, lemonade in hand. The neighborhood changed after that. The HOA apologized. A new board formed. They invited me to consult. I declined. They gifted me a bench placed under the sycamore. Etched on it, he stayed. Property owner since 2010. Karen moved out weeks later. No one waved. A retired couple moved in the Parkers. They hosted a chili cook-off. Mr. Parker raised a toast. We heard about the last tenant. We promise we only enforce bingo rules. Standing ovation. As for me, I stayed. Always had. Quietly, lawfully, entirely. And the next time someone in a pastel tracksuit tried to summon authority they didn't have, well, I had my lemonade, my lawn chair, and federal agents on speed dial. Because some people think yelling the loudest makes them right. But I knew the truth. I never moved, and they never could make me.